All right, here we go. So, welcome to another episode of the Non-Victim Nation podcast. I'm here with my friend Bobby Bushcraft, who has actually been on the podcast prior, but now that we've got the studio and you can actually see us, I thought it would be great to have him back and take a look and see especially since you helped give a lot of advice on how to get some of the stuff set up. So, greatly appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Looks good.
Thanks. So it's been a little while. Has there been anything like really interesting that stands out that you've been doing kind of in the last year since last time I talked to you? Or
No, same stuff. Just photography, full time. Traveling the country.
So now, are you still working with Carrie?
Once in a while. I did the past month. I did two events with her.
Okay.
In the past month.
Yeah, because last time we had talked about her not becoming governor, and that was still kind of all in the
right. It's still in court, actually.
Right.
It's still going.
And so now she's made the step up. She's going to bypass it altogether and go for the Senate.
Right.
So I think that is a fantastic idea. We'd really love to see her succeed at that.
Yep.
Do you think that she's going to run into issues, not necessarily with being elected, but like the same sort of?
I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Because nothing has been fixed since the last election.
I gotcha.
So we can only expect that it's going to be the same.
Right.
So the answer to that is you need the numbers, big numbers, outcome in voting, and can't wait to the day of election to go out and vote. So you're going to have, if you get a mail-in ballot to your house, you got to get everybody to get those mail-in ballots in. And also on election day, you need a big turnout. You need a bigger turnout than previously in order to win.
That's a good thing. Like I said, I would love to see her succeed in that. I think that she will do far more for the state than anybody else has. So.
And she'll have to, because right now the current state of Arizona is a mess, and it just seems to be getting worse with the current governor.
So, if you had to name off just like the top maybe three things that we really need to fix, what would those be?
First thing is the border. Obviously, the border. It's people talked about it for so long. Several years ago, they were talking about, ever since Trump left office, and they were talking about an unsecure border. A lot of people blew it off. A lot of media didn't cover it at all. You are seeing the coverage now, more so. There's even Democratic, entities and some Democrats that are even speaking on the border now, saying, "Look, we need to close the border."
Right
now, it's gotten to a point where I think it's probably almost too late. There's been millions of people who have crossed the border that are in this country right now, and we don't know what they're doing.
Right.
There's various, whether you're talking to politicians or just general folks that are out there living their lives, they're all affected by these illegal people crossing the border. The biggest issue, and I saw one of the biggest numbers, was, there's people on the terrorist watch list, all from the Middle East and all over the world.
Right.
And, there's people coming in, there aren't any Mexicans coming into the country illegally.
Right.
Everybody, they're from other countries. Most of them aren't even from this continent. So I think the number I saw recently was 276. The number 276 doesn't sound like a large number.
Right.
But that 276 number is the number of known terrorists on the watch list that have been caught coming into the country. So they actually stopped them. So the question is, how many got through?
Right.
And we don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just inevitable. And everybody I speak to, friends all over the country, whether they're on the East Coast, West Coast, no matter where they're, even people in other countries that I routinely speak to, they all say that they have this feeling of something is going to happen. They can feel it. They feel something is coming soon, whether it's another 9/11 type of attack or, something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time.
Right.
I mean, I think, and you could check the numbers, just going off the top of my head, I think there's only about 900,000 police officers in this country. Like you look at all the cities, you look at all the big cities, the small towns, the counties.
Mhm.
If you add it all up, I think the number was somewhere around 900,000 law enforcement for the
Okay.
United States. Over 2 million people have come here illegally.
Yeah.
Right. So what about the people that are already here?
Right.
The illegals.
Mhm.
And then there's only 900,000 police officers for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like
Yeah.
the numbers don't match
Yeah.
up. And again, the only thing that's kept us free, which a lot on the left are trying to eliminate, is your Second Amendment rights.
Right.
So the Second Amendment is what has kept us safe
Mhm.
from other people wanting to do us harm,
Mhm.
right? Because so many people here have the ability through the founding fathers, they had the foresight to know that the Second Amendment was important and you have a right to keep and bear arms.
Right.
So the United States, without a doubt, there's so many guns owned by the citizens here, legally owned guns, that it's the citizens themselves. We're our own small army,
Right.
and that's what's kept us safe.
Mhm.
But when you add millions of people, millions of military-aged men that have come across the border
Mhm.
by themselves or brought here by others to do harm,
Mhm.
then it raises the stakes a little, and I think it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem for the safety of everyone.
Mhm.
So that would be, the border security would be,
Right.
I think the number one issue that's going on right now.
Mhm.
The second issue would be election integrity.
Definitely.
Election integrity, which you could probably interchange with the first one. I mean, depending on, you got to be able to prioritize. Right
Mhm.
now, we got all these people coming illegally, but, election integrity might be number one as well, because if you don't have free and fair elections,
Mhm.
then what do you have?
Yeah.
It's just chaos, and there's no order. Where's the democratic society? Where is this republic going?
Mhm.
If we're sitting here and we're expecting to be able to go and vote, and you're electing your representatives,
Right.
and then the elections aren't being
Yeah.
done in the fair way that they should be being done,
Right.
and there's things that are being hidden, and it's, I would say, so election integrity and the border security,
Mhm.
and then that would probably lead into crime. I think
Okay.
that I would say two, crime and homelessness, especially here for this area, and not just
Mhm.
here. I'd say New York, California, here, Phoenix, um, 5 years ago.
Mhm.
I think the city of Phoenix, at one point for homelessness, they were out counting the amount of people that were basically homeless. Like they had an idea on who they were. And there was something like in the round whereabouts of like 600 homeless people in
Okay.
Phoenix that they knew of.
Mhm.
They knew because they come in, they check in. And in just three years, there's like 6,000 now. They went from like 600 to 6,000. These are just rough numbers. That's off the
Right.
top of my head. I mean, it's not exactly, but it could be 5,350, but
Mhm.
it's around 6,000, right?
Yeah.
So where did these people come from? How are they, why is there so many displaced people? Why are there so many people that are homeless? And a lot of them who are homeless want to be homeless.
Mhm.
Some of them are down and out, genuinely down and
Right.
out because of an economy, because of a lot of it is mental disorders. A
Mhm.
lot of it, a lot of these people need treatment, mental, treatment, psychiatric treatment. A lot of it is drugs. A lot of
Mhm.
people are, if you look at some of the video, the things that are going on, there's some interesting websites and there's some interesting Instagram accounts that are, if you want to look into this type of stuff, you could follow. There's one called in particular. There's one called Street People of Los Angeles,
Okay.
and there's one called, I think they want Street People of Phoenix. There's several of those, but if you look up those Instagram accounts,
Mhm.
and these are people who are going around and filming what's happening on the streets, and it's sad.
Right.
Like, how did we go from being the most powerful, important, biggest nation
Mhm.
ever, like
Right.
ever in the history of the world up to
Mhm.
now, to we're becoming this crumbled society full of mentally ill, drug addicts, homeless people. And, it's almost coming, it seems like and from 20, 30 years ago, this country has completely changed.
Oh, it really has.
And I mean, do you see that?
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about things how, and I'm going to throw the back in my day kind of thing out there, but when I was a kid, the way that things were compared to how they are now is astronomically different. Um, we didn't have all of the same. I mean, crime has always been a thing. It's not like it didn't exist, but it wasn't anywhere near on the same level that it is now, right? As a 5-year-old kid, I could get up in the morning and go walk through a big empty field by myself to school, and there was never ever a thought that I'd be snatched or, be handed over to child traffic or human trafficking, those sorts of things, that although it probably did exist, it was such a minuscule thing compared to what it is now.
Right.
I wouldn't dream of letting a kid, of almost any age, go walking by themselves in some area where there was no,
100%.
those sorts of things. The very idea of the country, and this is one of the biggest things that I see, is that we have lost our identity as a country. Even the little things that we did when we were kids, like when you were in school, you stood up every morning, you said the Pledge of Allegiance. They don't do that anymore. Now people are being taught that to honor the flag is to be a racist. They're being taught that, somehow caring about this country means that you don't care, or that you have negative thoughts about everywhere else, and that somehow makes you a bigot and a racist and whatever else.
Right.
So just the overall sense of how we feel about our country and the way people deal with things now is completely different.
It is. And we're also a lot more global now because of social media, because of the internet, because of the immediate need of information and having it at your fingertips.
Right.
Or misinformation. A lot of it is misinformation.
Right.
A lot of the stuff is propaganda. A lot of the stuff, a lot of people go to look something up or look somebody up, and you'll see Wikipedia. Half of the stuff on Wikipedia, I mean, it's a left-leaning organization. Google, same thing. They put on there, they put out stuff that they want you to see. It might not be true.
Right.
But again, like you said, being able, when I was a kid, we can go out and, your parents used to say, hey, go do whatever you want. I'm back at dark or whatever. And you would come home, and we didn't even lock our doors back then. Like, how many people do you hear, used to say, we didn't lock our doors or.
Right.
And I think it's the same when the country is losing its identity, as you stated earlier, where other countries are not. Some other countries are losing their identity too. When you look, if I name a country and you could just say Russia, what do you see in your mind as Russia? What do you see in your mind when I see Germany? So they had a certain identity to them. Russia had an identity. Germany has an identity. Brazil has an identity. Sweden, England. Like, when you say it, there's a certain identity or this certain vision that you have from seeing that country. All of those countries I just named, though, except for probably Brazil, all the ones I just named, they're also all losing their identity because of the influx of the amount of people which they've been taking in. And nobody has taken in more people than the United States is taking. Right. I mean, and it's great. Everybody could come here, everybody can prosper, but you need to do it the right way.
Right.
What other country, like if I just went to go across the border, I mean, what happens when you go to Korea or Iran? They lock you up. Like, if you're in the country, they put you in jail.
Right.
Not here.
Yeah.
Like, why is everybody coming here? Like, they're coming here because of that, that great society, the great republic on the hill that had the shining light and the beacon for everybody to come, and they could be what they wanted to be. And there's no limit set on what they can do as long as you worked hard and did that. But that's not what we're telling ourselves.
Right.
Especially since COVID. Since COVID happened, now everything is like they just want you to stay home, and we'll pay you to stay home.
Right.
Like, don't go out, don't do anything. Kids don't want to go work. I think the number one thing now, when I was a kid, everybody, like, if you said to a kid, what do you want to be? And it was always, doctor, lawyer, fireman, policeman, whatever. whatever there was a list. Now the number one thing that kids say they want to be is they want to be a YouTuber. Look it up. That's the number one thing.
Yeah, they want to be an influencer.
They want to be a YouTube influencer.
Right.
So we have right now in this country, we have a police shortage because of all the stuff that we're, defund the police and all the stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We have a doctor shortage. We have a nurse shortage. We have a worker shortage at some point. Like everywhere you go, every time you go somewhere, for instance, just the other day, I went to go just get maintenance on the car, right? Mm-hmm. And every time I go to the dealership or a place to get the car worked on, they go, it's going to be this long because we're short staffed. Mm-hmm. Everybody's short staffed. Right. I mean, how can you be short staffed? There's more people here now than there ever was.
Right.
How can you be short staffed? Because it's all by design. Mm-hmm. It's here's drugs, here's social media, and people do this all day long. Mm-hmm. This is a drug too. Right. It's totally controlling everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's just where we're at today. I mean, there's almost no getting around it. Everybody has a phone. Like 10 years ago, we had flip phones and these other things, and people would talk or text. Mm-hmm. You didn't have everything right here. Like now, people kept their calendar or a journal and a written, that they carried around with them. Right. You don't have to with this because everything is here.
Right there.
So, it's nice. It's convenient. The technology is impressive, but I think it's also bad. I think it's becoming to a point where we rely so much on this for your banking, for your scheduling, for making appointments, for whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So what happens when the internet goes down? What happens when they take the internet down purposely? Right. What if the electricity goes out? Mm-hmm. What if you can't charge this?
Right.
Then what do you do?
Mm-hmm. So I remember, again, when I was a little kid, if you said the ball and chain, the old ball and chain, it generally referred to like your spouse. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was kind of like, for people that aren't old enough to remember this, like the idea that you had a manacle around your ankle and an actual chain and a big iron ball, right? That was a weight that was like holding you down and make sure you didn't get away, generally in prisons, right? But now that instead of the idea of your chain to your spouse or to whatever responsibility you have, now phone is the ball and chain. It's the thing that you can't get away from. Mm-hmm. And it's the thing that realistically is really limiting what you do with your life.
It is 100%. And kids that have, I remember, some people, I remember when there were no cell phones, we were still using pay phones or your home phone or whatever, right? So everybody still met with their friends. Right. Everybody still went out and did things. There was a way you used to remember like 50 or more phone numbers. Right. You could remember. I can't remember any right now. I think I can't even remember my number. Mm-hmm. But it just shows what this does to you. It shows that you're relying on this device for so much, and when it goes down, you're going to have to improvise. And there's going to be a lot of people, especially kids that have grown up with this and don't know anything else. Mm-hmm. They're going to be lost. Right. Like totally lost, like what to do. Like now, everything now too is Zoom. Everything is a Zoom call. Like instead of going and meeting people for a job or for interviews or meet a new client you used to go and say, hey, let's go get lunch. Let's meet and go eat somewhere. Now it's a Zoom call. Zoom me at 11, and we'll talk on no matter where you are. Right. And that's just the way everything is now. And there's so many people that work from home now. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. You drive around Phoenix or other cities. I've been to a couple cities recently, and you look around at all these buildings, and these big buildings that have offices and used to be full of people are working. They're all empty. Mm-hmm. I just saw a video on YouTube about San Francisco. Like the entire town, there's nobody there. Like in the city where all the buildings are, right? It's like empty. It's like there's nobody there.
That's crazy.
It's high crime, and all the pharmacies and all these places, now with that stupid law that if it's under whatever $900 or whatever it is, you can't even call the police. And now California instituted a law, the California Assembly and the state legislature in California instituted a law that now, like say you work for Walmart and you see people stealing. Right. And if it's under $1,000 and you try to stop them, you committed a crime. for trying to stop them. Like it's a criminal
thing.
and it's like how did they come up with this stuff? Like
Right.
it's like California is totally California was one of the most beautiful places.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And they've turned that place into like and don't get me, there's still beautiful parts of California. Just the environment and the political craziness has just their policies
Mm-hmm.
have totally ruined that state.
Right.
And you know and you know Gavin Newsom and these other people that are running that place. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and again, you can get me going on the whole thing with Gavin Newsom or Larry Elder. Larry Elder really should be, you know, the governor of California, I would think. But it's just it's aggravating when you think about it because a lot of this stuff just doesn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be happening, and it's all being forced on us by design
Mm-hmm.
for a particular outcome of what the elites want to see happen for the future.
Right. So, not to get too far off point, but I kind of wanted to go back. You joined the military before or after you were in the police department? Before.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your MOS? Like, what did you do?
95 Bravo.
Okay. So, what did your job mostly entail?
Military police.
Okay. Because I know that during that time you had gone to other countries and
I lived overseas for 4 years.
Gotcha. So, again, looking at like how things have changed for not just our country, but like when you went to those places, like the things that you saw there, do you see those same sort of things being repeated here? Like, or do you see that things have,
No,
you know?
no, not here. They're not being repeated because all those places I went to at that time, again, that was over 30 years ago, but you know, at that time, everybody wanted to be like the United States. Everybody wanted to go to the United States.
Right.
When they met an American, they were happy to meet you. They were, you know, it was a different world, and they, you know, and a lot of those places outside of Europe, you know, most other places, most third world countries. El Salvador is a good example. El Salvador was an extremely dangerous place. It was probably one time it was the most dangerous place on earth, besides at that time, El Salvador, Afghanistan, Colombia, parts of Colombia. And that's all shifted though. So now, like Mexico is one of the most dangerous places on earth, right? El Salvador now is not. And the country's really turning it around. In El Salvador, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but it's really becoming a touristy vacation spot, like the way Costa Rica was. A lot of people wanted to go to Costa Rica, and now El Salvador is becoming that way. And there's a lot of people that are starting to go, and everything's very inexpensive, and they're really turning that country around. Which is, you know, it's amazing how things shift and change. And I think a lot of the stuff that, you know, you said going on in Europe, every continent has its, you know, its issues, its problems. And there's hot spots everywhere, but just, you know, every 10 years or so, it seems like everything changes.
Yeah, I've seen the prison system that they have in El Salvador and how they treat the inmates and the fact that they're not citizens, they don't have rights, they don't, you know.
Right.
So when I look at that, and especially considering I work for the Department of Corrections, it's like I see how easily these inmates are being treated, regardless of what they've done.
Right.
Sex offenders, the worst things you can think of, and they're being allowed to walk around on a day camp. You know, those two things for me don't line up. I honestly think that the way that El Salvador is, their prison system, it should be how prison is supposed to be.
Right.
It's supposed to be someplace you don't ever want to go.
Right. I agree. And I agree. And I saw that firsthand. I saw in when I was in Panama, and I was a liaison, being military police and being bilingual. I was selected to be a liaison officer. So I got to wear plain clothes on behalf of the military, and I was partnered with a Panamanian police officer. And I would see the prisons down there. So in Panama, when you go to prison, or most of those countries, you know, Colombia is kind of the same. Colombia has some pretty nice prisons, actually. But Panama at the time, and this is, again, 30 years ago, at the time, you went in there, everybody was the same. It was kind of like free for all. if like your family would have to wait outside and bring you food if you had family. And if not, you had to kind of fight to get something to eat because there's no like 3 meals a day and TV, like all that. There's none of that. You go in there and you're literally sitting in a piece of crap room with a bunch of other people that are they're all going at each other. It's and that's where you get your people that are hooking up with the gangs, and these are my people, these are these people, and they're it was like a free for all, and you don't have that here. Here's like the federal prison system here is, you probably know more about it than I do, but it's like very playing tennis and like, I mean, they can do all kinds of stuff.
Right.
You go to college and have free dental and free medical and all this crazy stuff. And it's like some people here don't even have that. The citizens here don't even have that.
Right. So I can go into a very long rant about the fucking misabuse of our money for taxes. But here's where it really gets me. That these people that are in prison right now get full health benefits. They're completely taken care of on everything, up to and including gender reassignment.
Right.
That's the one
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like...
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I'd really love someone to explain the logic in that and how that's...
And I would say, if you want gender reassignment, wait till you get out of prison. Oh, you're not getting out of prison? Well, you're not getting that. You should have thought about that before you got here.
Yeah. So
that's an easy question.
So those are the kind of things that really just push me over the edge. It's like I can't stand this anymore.
Yeah. And it's like that everywhere in this country though now.
Yeah.
With everything.
Yeah. So, and kind of going back to what you said earlier, like if you think about like how things were when we were younger to how they are now. And I don't say this just to be political. Really, really firmly believe that the liberals are responsible for
the liberal policies. It's the policies
of everything that's wrong in this country.
You're right, and a lot of them really believe in it, in what policies they come out with. A lot of them don't. They don't believe in the policies. They put them forward, but they do it for personal gain. Right. A lot of the stuff that they do, and all politicians do, stuff for personal gain. Look at the craziness going on now. It's both sides. It's both parties. It's both trying to get the Speaker of the House. Why is it now every time we try to get a speaker, it's like a whole circus of craziness for a week trying to get somebody? Like Congress is so dysfunctional. And everybody has their own priorities and everybody wants their own thing, but they're supposed to be representing their districts. Right. They're supposed to be doing stuff for the people that they represent. And there's only a few people that do that. There's so many people in Congress right now that are just there for themselves, to benefit themselves in some way or another. And there's very few. There's few that are actually doing what they're supposed to do as it was set forth in the Constitution. Right. Very few. And then one of our here in Arizona, look at Eli Crane. Eli Crane is doing a fantastic job.
Right, he really is.
He is like, if something comes up for a matter of vote, he immediately gets with his staff. He puts out an email survey. He wants to survey his people in his district. Do you want this or do you don't want this? And he usually, majority rules. Right. If we're a football team or if we're whatever type of team, when we vote on something, right? I think, if 10 people don't want it and 11 people do, then you do what the 11 people want because that was the majority. Right. This is a democratic system that we have, and I think that's the way it should be. But that's not what's happening.
That's how it's supposed to be.
That's not what's happening.
So, and then you get into the other piece of that where even all the people that we elect for our political positions, in some regards, really have very little influence over what's going on because the oligarch, pharmaceutical companies, large tech companies, things like BlackRock, those are the people that are truly running things.
Yeah, the way I see it, and the way that as the information that I get from the people I know in Washington, everything is run by there's three industries basically: military industrial complex, the pharmaceutical complex, and then everything else is the technology tech. And they kind of run everything. They're actually running the country. They're not. They're not. Congress and what they do is It's completely dysfunctional. They have the lowest approval rating that they've ever had. They don't, just the stuff that they're doing is unheard of. And and it's not to say that it was that way back in the 1800s too. There was crazy stuff. When you go back and you look, you could go to the Library of Congress and other places and look up, the votes that were taken by, when Lincoln came along and they started the Republican Party. You could see the vote, like for instance, on slavery, right?
Right.
The Republicans voted to abolish slavery, and the Democrats didn't. They didn't want, and it's amazing how that whole thing has changed and flipped through the Great Society, and then on through in the '60s with LBJ and the things that the policies that he put forth to where we are today, and dealing with this crazy the society we have today is so complex. There's so many working pieces, and as soon as one thing's taken out of context, look at the stuff. I was watching the news the other day and stuff with Israel and all these people, the Palestinian support in the cities and the marches that they're having for Palestine. It's amazing. And all these college students, the way they control everything in college now is propaganda and mind control and like brainwashing. Like they can't think for themselves. Like the higher institutions have just,
they are no longer institutions of education. Now they are indoctrination camps.
Right.
That's really all that they do there.
Right.
Just on that idea, when you see all of the protests and the marches that, like, not just in this country, but all around the world, in Australia and France and like all these places, right? I have to wonder how much of that is those people really honestly believe what they're saying, and how much of it is they don't have the first fucking clue about history or what the actual real agenda is.
They don't, because it's not taught anymore.
Yeah.
It's not being taught, so they only know what they're told.
Right.
And I think, and they're trying to change history. A lot of these places, they're trying to change what's in textbooks.
Right.
And what happened when, look what happened in, was it 32 in Germany, where they burned books. Yeah. Because they didn't want to know what was in the past. Right. You're getting rid of all this history, and they're kind of doing the same thing now. And they're trying to make it fit the agenda that they want to have. Again, it's all by design. It's all being forced in a way. All the wokeness, all this. Look what's happening. Like all this wokeness. Look at how it's affecting the big companies, like Disney. Disney's down like 25% or something. Right. And it's crazy the amount of. I just heard that they're going and reshooting a bunch of movies that Disney had, because they made like what was the name? What's that movie? Cinderella, or one of the movies they were making, and it was really super woke. And now they're going and reshooting parts of it because it was too bad. It was like they went too overboard. Yeah. And they see that they're losing all this money, and now they're it's amazing. It's hard to believe that this is happening. It's almost like it's not real. It feels like it's not real. But every day you wake up and you go on, and every day is just one day, and then there's the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, and every day is different. And you wake up, and I'm to the point now, and today's Halloween, right? I guess. Yeah. So at the end of the year, so 24, we have an election coming up, and I was listening to a retired generals that were talking about the fact that it's possible that we won't even have an election in 24.
That's pretty good too. Yeah. On the point of Israel, like, what is your kind of general knowledge, understanding of the situation that's going on there?
Well, I mean, that's something that's going on, and I'm not no expert by any means, but for thousands and thousands of years, there's been problems between, Jews, and it's when they became a state, and it was at 47, I think they became actually they had them become a state, gave them what is now country of Israel. Yeah. Prior to that, it wasn't, and there's always been that infighting on those lands. Right. But again, it's funny that how is it something that for so many thousands of years, how do you hold this like it's a religious ideology? But the hatred is just crazy. Like how do you get to a point where and I don't care what side it is. I'm just saying, people in general, how do you get to a point where you go in and you attack a bunch of unarmed people and you rape women and cut their stomach, cut babies out of their stomachs and behead them? How is that okay?
Right.
How is that okay in any means, in any society, in whatever religion? How is that okay?
It's just not.
But so that's it, the whole thing. The whole thing is just it makes no sense, and it seems like it's being driven by various factions, by various people, and who want power, who want to be in control. But the whole you hear this almost every day on the news. We want to wipe Israel from the map. We want to get rid of Israel. We want to why do you want to get rid of these people? Why? Why can't you live and they live and everybody live where they want to live? I mean, at some point 4 years ago when President Trump was here, he had all of them sitting down and signing the peace accord.
Right.
How did we go from that to where we are today? So there's something driving it. It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense.
Right. And again, this is where I get really wound around the axle about people that are protesting. They don't understand what it is that they're protesting, because all those things that you just named off, there is no part of any rational person that could look at that and say that is justified because you disagree with their religious ideology. That's just not okay. To say, or they had it coming because they did something else in the past too. It's like, that's still not okay. And I had a conversation with my son Hunter about this, and the idea that if I say, okay, so if there's somebody who is abusing a child, right? And I say that person should have his ass kicked. Okay. Well, we'll use a different reference. So if he's abusing a puppy,
they probably should.
Well, he's abusing a puppy. Okay. And say that guy deserves to have his ass kicked, right? On some level, I am willing to go kick that guy's ass because I'm actually saying that. I'm not just saying somebody should go kick his ass. I think that if he were within arm's reach of me, probably would. Okay, so the people that are protesting, it's how much of what they're saying is them just being hyperbolic, and how much of it is, if they were there, would they actually be doing the same things?
Right. Or how much of I wonder how much of the protesting is being paid for.
Yeah, that too.
Just like if you go back to George Floyd, the BLM stuff, a lot of it was being paid for. People were being paid to go protest.
Yeah.
To affect an agenda. I saw the other day at the people protesting Israel in England, and there was something like 100,000 protesters. I couldn't believe. I'm like, in England, I'm like, how do you get all those people to it's amazing to me. So they're being given false information, propaganda, or they're paid. Obviously, some of them really do believe what they're saying. I mean, I think it's a mixture of all of it. I think it's got to be it's a mixture. It's hard to believe that people would want to think that way.
Right.
Like you said, you want to go kick the guy's ass who's hitting a puppy or even a kid. There's a big difference between wanting to kick someone's ass and beheading them.
Right.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
It's like death and to eliminate them from the planet. There's a huge difference. It's just where do you draw the line, and where does it end? And how do you get to the point where there's that much hatred? How?
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Well, the other thing too is that most of that is directed at Israelis, but even let's say hypothetically that they managed to succeed in wiping those people out. You think that all of that is just going to stop and go away? Everybody's going to be happy now?
No, it's not.
No, they're just going to fucking redirect it someplace else.
Right.
And now,
never going to end.
Us infidels, now we become the bad guys. Now we're the ones that need to be wiped.
Well, they're saying that too. And even people in this country are saying the same thing. These kids, these American kids who are going to Harvard and these other places are saying that, the same thing, death to America. What do you say? You're in America. You're going to college. You're going to one of the best colleges in the country, apparently. And you're saying death to America.
Right.
So why? So how did they get there? How did they get that thought? How are we arriving at what is happening to these kids?
I've seen other Twitter feeds where they talk about, the idea that the Israelis are colonists, that they've colonized that area and they don't deserve to have it,
Right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody brought up the idea that's like, well, if you're not Native American, then technically you're a colonist of this country. Does that mean you should be
That's right.
killed too?
Right. Well,
And-
right.
And there's this gigantic response from people, thousands deep, saying, yes, that's 100% correct. It's like,
Right.
how many people answering that damn question are
Right.
actually Native American? It's like, do you not
Right.
get what you're saying?
Well, we are colonists. We were colonists from England.
Yeah.
When we came here, we colonized this country and took it from the Indians. I mean, the whole thing is just people. A lot of it is, and I see this like on a daily basis. People are misinformed. They're not educated, and they're misinformed.
Right.
Both. Like,
Yeah.
they don't go to school, or they went to a terrible school, or they went to a school that just told them that, like you were saying earlier.
Mhm.
When I went to school, you got up every day, said the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, there was like 3 TV channels, right? There was 3
Right.
channels, and every day,
Yeah.
when the TV broadcast came on, Pledge of Allegiance,
Mhm.
right? And then at night they shut it off. Same thing. That's what happened. And how did we go from not doing that to where we are today?
Right.
And that's not that long.
Mhm.
It's not that long in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So they are being taught that, or they're not being taught. They don't have the education, and they're just going by whatever they see on social media,
Right.
whatever it is they're following, whoever it is they're following.
Mhm.
Again, back to the technology.
Mhm.
It's it could be a blessing and it could be a curse at the same time. And I think there's good and bad in everything. And I think that at this point we're relying so much on technology,
Mhm.
like so much, and it could be bad for us because we are.
Right. Especially and we'll get into this, the whole idea of the AI and how that starts to affect everything.
Yeah.
That's its own thing. I don't know that we'll ever get to the point of like Skynet.
Well, I think we might be here before you know it. I think that's coming. I think that at the rate that it's going, I think that Elon Musk was saying that the technology for that almost exists now.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
There's lots of stuff that the government has that exists right now that's being kept hidden.
Right.
That they've developed through military industrial complex, through Lockheed, Skunk Works, and through Boeing and Raytheon and all these companies that are all part of that they have, they siphon money off the military budget every year, and they provide it to these companies to do off the books engineering and off the books development of devices and objects and technologies that we don't know about.
Right.
It's hard to believe. We were talking with people the other day. It's hard to believe, and you look at the plane technology, or how long have planes been around?
Not that long.
Not that long, right? So, but how did we go from a regular telephone to these devices? How fast the technology's progressed.
Right.
So, and I've heard years and years ago, I think even as a teenager, I heard that, there was, the guy invented, an engine that would, use just water. You can put water in your engine and run your car.
Right.
And of course, it was bought by Exxon, or somebody bought it just so they wouldn't develop it, because he would put the oil companies out of business.
Right.
So the technology exists. It's out there. It's just not being used because somebody has to be able to capitalize on it.
Right.
Somebody has to make money on it. And if they don't want, you have all this oil, it would totally, oil industry is one of the biggest in the world. It's a worldwide bringer of the big bucks. So,
right.
And if water's free, so then they'd have to figure out how to charge people for water that falls from the sky.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. Yeah.
I hope that if we ever get to that state of, like I said, Skynet, and then the idea that all of the military, all of those sort of things are like run by AI, that they incorporate some sort of failsafe to turn the damn things off. Because we've.
But the AI is learning. The AI it learns, and it learns to overcome, and it becomes smarter than we are.
Right.
So even if there was something to turn it off, it would probably stop us from doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the scary part. I mean, there's already stuff out there right now.
Mhm.
There's already technology out there
Mhm.
that is super scary. You know, they're using it with Trump.
Mhm.
They were making him say things that he didn't say.
Right, right.
Did you ever see the one guy that does the Tom Cruise impersonation?
Huh.
You never saw him online?
Mm.
There's a guy looks. He's like exactly like Tom Cruise. Sounds like him. Acts like him.
Okay.
But it's not Tom Cruise.
Okay.
And he has a video out showing how he does it through AI.
Nice. Yeah. I know that there are a lot of like AI programs that do writing,
Right.
things like that.
Right. You could write your whole.
Yeah.
You could write your whole like background. Write a bio for you.
Right.
Just giving it a few key terms.
So I also worry that we're going to get to a point where we just stop even putting the effort in to like think of anything and just let AI do it. It's like it's just going to create all of our stories, all our narratives, everything.
Well, it
it's
is.
like, you know,
Yeah, it is. It's done a few stories already too.
wasn't that part of like the writer strike? It's like
Yeah, it was
not wanting to be replaced by AI, you know,
right.
that sort of thing.
But
So
still, and the actor strike's still going. The writer strike's over, but the actor strike's still going on.
okay,
And it's the same thing because they could just use AI, like I just said with Tom Cruise. They have this guy that can beat Tom Cruise. Like he's
Right.
not Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
But he look. I mean, when you watch the videos, it's him. Like it's unbelievable
Right.
how this technology works, and it's like they need to do. There needs to be some type of oversight on the technology.
Right.
And government doesn't oversee thing anymore. They say there's oversight,
Right.
but there's not. I mean, there's no. It's all for show.
And coming back to that idea, it's like, you know, where is the oversight and the accountability for anything that's happening
There's
in our
zero
country right now?
accountability. There's no accountability for anybody in Congress. They're like zero. Doesn't matter what they've done. Doesn't matter. Doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. There's zero accountability, and that's one of the biggest problems.
Right.
If there was accountability, then the majority of them wouldn't be doing it.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we went back to say, for instance, I mean, there were still public hangings in the early 1900s
Okay.
in the Western territories and Oklahoma and places like that. If we went back to for certain crimes, public hangings outside in public, and you can come watch, I guarantee you, a lot of the stuff that's happening today would not be happening.
Right. Well, even if there were true accountability, not just for like the politicians and whatever, but like the people that actually go to prison now, there's no accountability for them either.
Nope.
You know, they get to hang out.
Right.
You know, depending on
what, you could kill somebody and be out in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, oh, you did your 10 years. That's it. For, you know, yeah. Or even less.
Yeah.
Manslaughter, you might get a year, maybe. You know, for if you kill somebody in a car accident or something, it's you get sick. You know, I mean, you didn't mean to do it. Yeah, but they're dead.
Right.
You know, these laws exist. If these laws are on the books and we're not going to enforce them, then why don't we just take them off the book? Let's just get rid of them then. Right? Why do we have these laws? Why they're not enforcing the laws that are on there now? They're not even. A lot of people aren't even enforcing the Constitution.
Yeah.
So why do we have this stuff? And I think that's what it's, everything's becoming, just like back to the border. There's laws about the people coming in this country, but none of it's being enforced.
Right.
And why? It's, why, what is and everybody knows the answer. But you can't tell anybody on the left that.
Right.
Some of them, the people in the middle are starting to see it. Yeah. And a perfect example, JFK Jr.
Right.
Or RFK Jr. Right. RFK Jr. The left won't even talk about him. Like they don't even want him. They don't want him to be around. They don't.
Right.
They refuse to do any coverage of him. They don't want him out there. And it's amazing because when you listen to him, he makes a lot of sense. And he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
But he's old school Democrat. And I agree with a lot of the stuff that he says. Yeah.
So on that note, and this gets into the whole conspiracy theory thing of JFK. Okay, the vast majority of people in this country believe that the government was complicit in his death. Okay, but there's still the whole.
So is his family.
The whole thing that it's the files are sealed.
Right.
Or whatever.
Why would you seal them? Why do we need to seal them? They were supposed to be unsealed already.
Yeah. So I keep coming back to this idea. It's like, what is the absolute worst case scenario if they said we
Because
didn't?
what they're going to see if you were allowed to let the public see files, you will see that the government was complicit.
Right. So again, like what's the worst case scenario? If everybody believes that already anyway, you know, what happens if they just said,
Because then you can have proceedings.
okay, but everybody that's involved is like nobody.
Everybody's dead. I know. I get
So,
it. I know. It's a
you
great.
know,
It's the mystery inside of a mystery inside of a mystery.
right. It's one of those things I just don't understand.
Isn't that what was that Pesci said that in the movie? Didn't he play that one character in JFK?
Uh-huh.
It's a mystery inside of a mystery inside of a mystery.
There you go. Um, so kind of another thing I wanted to talk about because you send me things on a fairly regular basis
Mm-hmm.
that have to do with like I guess you could call it conspiracy on some level,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like how a lot of things in our everyday lives are being manipulated
Mm-hmm.
by large corporations. So like
Right.
the idea that like our food
Right.
is being
It's not even a conspiracy anymore. It's out. I think if you read the latest stuff, you saw Tyson,
Mhm.
food company Tyson now is
Right,
they got bugs
right,
and you're feeding you bugs and they're putting bugs in your food now.
hmm
Like all kinds of different bugs,
right,
from crickets to grasshoppers, worms,
hmm
to all kinds of stuff. They're putting it in the food.
right.
That's not that's a fact.
Yeah,
Um, this has been going on, and what did Klaus Schwab say at the World Economic Forum? He wants everyone should be eating bugs and like it.
any thoughts on
Well, yeah, because they want. It's hard to wrap your head around this, but
right?
just if you should just stop for a minute and think
Uh-huh.
about this. Think
Okay.
about try and think of the size of the number of people on the planet.
hmm
Right, it's like 8 billion. Right.
Right,
Try and think about how big 8 billion is,
right.
and then you got to feed 8 billion people.
hmm
Like at some point, how do you keep replenishing the food?
hmm
Like, and this is where their whole sustainability is their big. They want to go wind and solar and eat bugs and like all this stuff. Like
Right.
because you're killing too many cows. You're not going to have enough cows to feed the planet. There's not enough rice to feed everybody on the planet. So then they came to this. Part of their conclusion is trying to get rid of. There's too many people. So now we got to get rid of people because then these other people won't be able to eat. So we need to drop the number of people
Right.
because we have 8 billion people. It's not
Mhm.
sustainable.
Right.
And they're saying even 1 billion is not sustainable.
Mhm.
So how do you lose seven out of every 8 people?
Yeah.
Right. So, if you watch a lot of the stuff in the news that's going on, and this isn't something that's new, that's just happening in the past. This has been going on for the past 20, 30 years.
hmm
If you go back and, read, there's numerous books and firsthand accounts and videos. Some of it is being suppressed, but there's all kinds of stuff on there from, the Bilderbergs to all these different societies and groups that have been working for 20, 30, 40, 50, some even longer, from the Rothschilds till present. There's all kinds of people with power wield and get what they want.
Right.
The more power you have, the more you get, the more you can change society to, get what you want accomplished.
hmm
And it's scary, like you said, with the foods, with any of that stuff.
hmm
It's a lot of the stuff. The funny thing you said, a lot of the stuff is like kind of conspiracy. Like it's only conspiracy until it comes true,
Right.
and all this stuff is coming true. Like all the stuff that the stuff they said about Trump, the stuff that the collusion, Trump colluding with. Well, it was all made up.
Right.
That's a fact. No, but the mainstream media won't report on that. But
Mhm.
it's a fact. You could look. It was all made up.
Right.
We all know that. Adam Schiff was one of the biggest proponents of coming up with this stuff. Adam Schiff is.
Mhm.
I don't know how he's still in Congress, but again, back to accountability. These are the people that. You're supposed to go to Congress, and our elected representatives, are supposed to do things
Mhm.
to better society for for the good of the whole, for the good of everyone. And you shouldn't be representing on party lines. You should be representing everybody in your district.
Right.
Just because you were voted by your party in your district doesn't mean that there's the other people that aren't in your party. You shouldn't represent them or listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not being done. That's not how things are working now.
Right.
And that's a shame. And it shouldn't be that way. And again, back to accountability. But how do you get them to pass laws for accountability? How do you get this to happen when they're the ones who are creating all this?
Right.
How do you, like, the fact that they could even vote themselves a raise, right?
Yeah.
Like, they shouldn't be able to. How do you vote yourself a raise? Like, they shouldn't have that ability to do that.
Right.
Somebody else should do that, not them.
Yeah.
Like, what if everybody could just vote themselves a raise?
Yeah.
Like, come on, it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing, even like, go look at taxes,
Right.
paying income tax.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody paid income taxes before, right?
Right.
It became part of the when they made the amendment to do so, like in the 30s or 20s or 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was this federal income tax that you had to pay tax. But
Right.
prior to that, people didn't pay taxes. That you paid taxes on the things that you bought. And you paid tax on, property tax, things like
Right.
that. But when the money you made, why should I have to pay a tax on the money I'm making?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then you start looking, well, it's for the betterment of society. They take that money and they put it in, and it's for roads, and it's for this, and it's for healthcare, and it's for, and then we came up with the great Social Security thing. FDR, we're going to have Social Security, so you'll have retirement when you get old. Yeah, but there's no money in the Social Security.
Right.
Where did it all go? They took it out. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that illegal? Like, so you stole somebody's money. If I'm paying taxes and I'm putting money I earn and I'm giving it to the government to hold for my retirement, but the money's not there, where'd it go?
Right.
So it was stolen. Like, none of this stuff makes sense.
Right.
None of it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the whole country, everything that we do and everything that's happening, everything is like a facade. Everything's fake. Mm-hmm. It's all fake. It's all being upheld for some reason. We're still here. There's other countries that are far worse than we are. Mm-hmm. That they survive just day to day. Like, if you ever go on a trip to Africa, whether you're a hunter or not a hunter, you go just on a vacation, and you see some of the tribes and some of the people that are there. Literally, they live day to day just trying to find something to eat, and that's their day.
Yeah.
And all those people, they have no technology. And they're happy.
Right.
They're all happy. And they're just finding something to eat. And, I don't know what the answer is. The answer is accountability. Mm-hmm. If you ask me, you need accountability. Right. You need, the justice system needs to be totally revamped. Mm-hmm. You need accountability. You need justice. And it needs to be, this partisan stuff. Everyone needs to work together to try and get through. I just don't see it happening, though, because there's, even if Trump gets elected, everyone's like, oh, as soon as Trump gets in here, it'll be good. Everything will be fixed. I don't think so. No. Because they're not going to let him do what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. They're not going to let him. Look at his last term when he worked. They were constantly, he was spending more time being defensive than he was getting stuff accomplished that he wanted to do. Right. And he never did nothing. He didn't fix health. Of course he didn't, because he didn't have time, because he was constantly being bombarded by all these people blocking him and left and the right, and then this and then that, even in his own party. Mm-hmm. If everyone would just come together for the common cause, common good, and say, hey, this is what we're going to do for everybody, and stop being so selfish, stop looking out for, I'm just looking out for me, all the insider trading, how do you go into Congress with no money, begging people for money, and then 6 years later, you're a millionaire? Right. How does that happen?
Or a multimillionaire.
Yeah. How does that happen? And then nobody wants to look into it. Mm-hmm. Come on.
Yeah. So if you could be king for a day and you could make a major change in this country, what would it be?
I think we have to totally redo the Constitution. Is actually the way it is. Mm-hmm. We just need to enforce the Constitution. Okay. Need to enforce the Constitution. And we also need to do there needs to be some updating, because, of course, at the time when the Constitution was written, mm-hmm. they couldn't look into the future. They
Right.
couldn't see the things that would come about because it actually is one of the most perfect documents for the society, for government society. It's actually really, really good. There's really nothing as long as you follow it. But there's some things that need to be changed. Some of the stuff is like, the guys that wrote all this stuff, they were doctors and lawyers and farmers, and they went and they served because they wanted to serve. You don't get
Right.
paid to serve.
Yeah.
So I think that some of it, I mentioned earlier, they should be allowed to give themselves raises. I don't think they should be paid what they're being paid. I think they should, I think there should be somewhat of term limits. You could, how can you just keep, like, look at Biden.
Yeah.
How could you be in government for 50 years?
Right.
Like, he's never had a job. Like, what's his, an adult job?
Right.
He's never adulted in his life. He's been paid by the people his entire career.
And done a shit job of it, most of it.
Right. And well, yeah, what does he have to show? Like, just in most of Congress, not just Biden, but everybody. Like, what have you accomplished? What have you done? Show me what you've done.
Right.
Oh, you named the post office. Oh, you named the road. Oh, you came up with this Protection Against Child Act that nobody enforces. You could go a list of just nonsense, right? What have they done? What have they accomplished for the majority of the people to better people's lives?
Right.
They haven't. So in the instance of like Biden, why is he in office for 50 years? That's ridiculous. Professional politician. The founding fathers, it wasn't a professional job. It was you went and you served and then you went back home and you did whatever you did. So you should serve a few terms or, and if you serve one term and then you go do something else, okay, and then you go away. Let somebody else do something.
Right.
Like, you shouldn't be there forever taking advantage of you're living off the taxpayer. And now I don't even think they live off the tax. Now it's just it's such a huge, it's just a monumental mess.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot.
It's a lot to think about. The stuff you think about every day. You watch the news and you just think to yourself, how is that possible? Like, how is this happening? Like, and now the news isn't even news anymore.
No.
Like, it's just
propaganda.
It's all propaganda. It's all what they want you to hear. So it's hard to find the news, and the only way to do that is to subscribe to certain engines, actually search engines, and you could search out if you want real news. But really, there's also the main agencies that provide the news are all in to make money.
So the things that you send me, is that stuff that you actually like research, or is it things that
some of it? Yeah, some of it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the stuff. Yeah, it's just interesting. I find it's funny. Some topics you might want to explore.
Right.
A lot of stuff from Of course, there's a lot of people. There's pros and cons on people with the whole aliens or extraterrestrials or whatever they're going to call them now. There's thing to change the name. Apparently, they have to change the name of everything. They've already changed the name of all the military bases for I don't know why. And because he was a racist. We're going to change the name of the pulling down statues, and it's just ridiculousness.
It reminds me of the little story that you hear that like there's a fence in the middle of the field, and a Democrat would come across this and look at the fence and say, "Well, I don't see any reason for this fence to be here, so let's just get rid of it." It's like without any cognitive thought about like there had to be some reason why somebody put it there. It didn't just spring into being by itself.
Right.
Whereas like somebody, and this is just a little story, it's like a Republican will look at it and it's like, well, there's a fence here. Let's figure out why, and those are ideological concepts, not necessarily like 100% true all the time, but in general, that's how it feels.
Right.
Like every time, they run across something that they don't like, it's like,
Right.
well, it doesn't matter how or why it's here. It's like, it's in my way. So now we're just going to fucking.
Right. Well, in the case of the naming the bases or pulling down statues, it's because it's offensive to somebody.
To who?
Right. Well, a small majority of the people, a small number of people, it's offensive to, not the majority.
Right.
To us, so we don't want it to be offensive, so we need to get rid of it.
So how
that's the wrong way of doing things. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't say, oh, we need to get rid of it. I don't like it. I don't pay attention to it. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me at all. Right. If it affects you, then you've got some kind of mental disorder.
Yeah.
Like if you're letting a statue in some city That's this big statue and it's there and it bothers you. Well, don't go over there.
Don't go
Like,
over there.
go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, why does it bother you?
Right. It's like,
Oh, for the meaning of what he was. Okay, well, he's dead.
right.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And, some people put it up there because of some meaning of significance to them.
Mhm.
And that's part of history. Why are you trying to change history?
Right.
You need to leave that history there for you to learn from it.
Mhm. There's a comedian that cracks me up. I don't remember his name, but he was talking about the idea of being offended. It's like, I was offended. It's like, who cares?
Right.
It's like nothing actually happens to you. You don't go to,
Right.
to see a comedian and said,
Right.
he was talking about religion and I was offended. And the next morning when I woke up, I had leprosy. It's like,
Right.
no, that doesn't actually happen.
You didn't lose any money because of
Yeah.
it, did you?
It's like
Right.
nothing changed.
Nothing does. It doesn't. That's the problem with the everything they do is like that.
Yeah.
It's just doesn't make any sense. It's like there's no rationalization of it. It's all emotion based.
Right. Yeah. Emotions are the problem, I think. It's like, because we've sort of let that become the rule for everything.
Right. It
You
is.
know?
And that's the problem here. But a lot of places that don't do that. A lot of places don't put up with that nonsense in
Mhm.
other countries.
Yeah.
And a lot of there's some countries that are doing so much better than we are.
Mhm.
I mean, go to Japan. Go to
Right.
places like that. Look here, Japan. We were in war with Japan, right?
Right.
We bombed them. We annihilated them,
Mhm.
and now they've come back, and they're even better. Like their society runs like.
Mhm.
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying it's doing better than we are.
Right.
Like the way they live and the flow of things, their traditions.
Mhm.
It's an amazing. The laws that they use. They don't.
Mhm.
It's just there's other places you can name too. That
Well, even, aspects of history. If there's the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and he describes, all of the
Mm.
bombings and things that were going on during World War II, and how, you would think that these people would be absolutely devastated because of the things that they had to survive through. And yet they had a better functioning society
hmm
with far less mental health than we have now.
Right. Right.
Even under those conditions, it's like,
Absolutely.
I've been saying this for a while. Everything in this country has been too good for too long, and that's why
Right.
we have problems that we have.
Right. Exactly. You're
You
right.
know?
And same thing back to in World War II. The same thing. Kind of the same. Russia. I think Russia lost in World War II lost like 2 million men.
Mhm.
2 million died.
Mhm.
Well, I think we lost a couple 100,000
Right.
right from World War II. Huge number disparity
Right.
on how much sacrifice
Right.
was given. But look at Russia now. Russia is prospering. Like you go to St. Petersburg or places like that, and it's pretty modern. It's pretty,
Mhm.
it's really coming along. A lot of places that we've been to or had been in wars. Vietnam.
Mhm.
Again, you go Vietnam's pretty modern. Like when you go to it now, and the society itself, it's I just see when you look at things globally and you do travel and you learn things, traveling is a great insight. Traveling is a better education than going to college, I think.
Mhm.
When you travel and you explore other societies, and you explore the cultures and languages and just all of it brings you so much more information,
Mhm.
and you see how the people react, or how, some things may be odd to you, but some
Mhm.
things may not. And some things, it just seems like this country seems to be slipping. It seems like we're going in the wrong direction
It's
very fast. Like
right.
it seems to be just, and again, a lot of people I feel, and people I talk to feel like this country's already gone. It's just gone. It's just a matter of time until something happens.
Right.
To completely change it. And I don't know. We're going to see what happens. It's out of our control. I mean, you can only control so much.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. It feels like we need some catastrophic event to snap us out of
right, a
what's going on.
catastrophic event. What happened after here? What happened after 9/11?
Mhm.
Catastrophic event here.
Yeah.
The country was united
Right.
under Bush, even though he wasn't, no fan of Bush.
Right.
But the country was still united. Like everybody was, oh, hey man, hey, how are you? They love the police. They love the military. Blah blah. Remember all that?
There were American flags
There was
everywhere.
there was no nobody was talking about racism or none of that stuff.
Yeah.
None of that stuff happened till 2008.
Right.
And then since then, It's been going down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. So the way we generally end is, I feel like we're at a good stopping point now. Is I generally ask people about their best dad advice, and I know that
Best what advice?
dad advice.
Oh, best dad advice.
So I know that you have kids.
Mhm.
How many kids do you have?
Two.
Two.
They're grown. They're
Yeah.
adults.
So instead of asking for dad advice, what I would like to know is, what is it that you really hope that you've managed to impart to them?
Being able to communicate and think for themselves,
Hmm.
being able to look at things objectively
Hmm.
and make their own decisions, not based on what they're told,
Hmm.
but based on being able to look, observe, take in knowledge, and being able to reason to come to an outcome on their own
Hmm.
without having to rely on Google or rely on, some crazy leftist that's, telling you this is the way things need to be. Just to look at reality. And then you could research things,
Hmm.
research that, and then you make your decisions based on what you've learned.
Right. That is excellent advice, and I think that that is the sort of thing that most people should be trying to teach their children, is to think for themselves, not just
Mm-hmm.
go along with everything that's being told to
Right.
them, because most of it's bullshit,
That is.
you know. And it's fine if it turns out that, you know, you still believe what you believe, but at least you took the time to look
And
into it,
that's exactly right. And anybody could believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't ever want to. If you believe in purple men that come from like some far galaxy, that's great for you.
Right.
Who am I to tell you not to believe that?
Yeah.
Everybody is here of their own free will. Everybody's free. You were born free,
Hmm.
like in a free country.
Hmm.
We're not really free anymore. We're all tied down to like this and
Right.
to a financial system we have no control over, to all these different things. We're kind of enslaved.
Right.
We're all enslaved, but we were born in a free society.
Right.
And you're free to do what you want to do. You're free to think what you want to think. You're free to go. If you want to go right now, what's
Mhm.
stopping you right now? What's stopping you from walking out of here and going to New York City?
Not
What's
much.
stopping you from flying to England right now?
Mhm.
What's stopping you?
Money.
Oh, okay. Money. But you could go
But,
do
right.
it. If I gave you the money, you could go do it.
Exactly.
Right. You're free to do what you want to do.
Mhm.
And that's the way everybody should be. Everybody should be free to do what they want to do as long as you don't hurt someone else.
Right.
Right. So I think freedom, when you come back, if you want to end it, freedom is
Mhm.
probably the most important thing you could have. Money, I wouldn't say money is.
Mhm.
Freedom and time are more important than money.
True.
You can't get back time. You only have so much time.
Right.
You can make tons of money, lose tons of money, get tons of money. You can never get back time.
Mhm.
There's only so much time in your life and you're dead.
Right.
Right. So time and
Mhm.
then freedom to do what you want with that time are more important than anything else.
I agree. Which is why I greatly appreciate the time that you're willing to be here and have conversations like
You
this.
bet, buddy.
That helps a lot.
All right.
So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, you can now support the Non-Victim Nation by donating via listener support directly on Spotify. Remember, the story of your life is being written right now, and you are the hero.